So Wall Street has announced who they will back and who they will absolutely shun. And it's a great thing. This is great. They're giving us the blueprint for who we should absolutely not vote for and who we should be supporting. So according to this article, I found this one in Common Dreams, but this was ultimately a Politico report. They said the first 2020 Democratic presidential primary is still over a year away, but Wall Street executives are reportedly already freaking out about two likely progressive candidates, Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. It can't be Warren and it can't be Sanders, the CEO of a giant bank anonymously told Politico, which reported on Monday that Wall Street executives are getting panicked about the presidential prospects of the Senate's two fiercest financial sector critics. Good. Both progressive senators have placed scrutiny on Wall Street's size, record of large-scale fraud, exorbitant CEO pay packages, enormous political influence, and lack of stringent regulations at the center of their political agendas for years. And deep-pocketed bankers who have profited immensely from President Donald Trump's tenure are worried that one of the two could ascend to the White House and threaten their pocketbooks. Yes, that is what we want. Bankers' biggest fear, Politico reported, is that the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination goes to an anti-Wall Street crusader like Warren or Sanders. The result is kind of a nervous paralysis of executives pining for a centrist nominee like Michael Bloomberg, Politico noted, referring to the billionaire former New York City mayor who's reportedly considering a self-funded presidential bid. Although I think Bloomberg has already said he's probably not. But now we've got Schultz to kind of fill that void there. According to Politico, Wall Street executives who want Trump out of the White House mentioned a consistent roster of appealing nominees they would find acceptable outside of Bloomberg, who the outlet describes as Wall Street's platonic ideal. Okay, let's find out who these candidates are. You might be surprised. The roster reportedly includes Democratic Senators Cory Booker. Eyes on you, Cory. Eyes on you. Kirsten Gillibrand. Yeah, we already knew that. She's expanded her... Cory Booker we knew, too, because, that guy's been in with Big Pharma for a long time in Wall Street, and I think we all kind of knew that. Kirsten Gillibrand, I think for her exploratory committee, the first thing she did was court Wall Street, right? She went around asking them, what do you think about me being president? And they were like, yeah, great. Kamala Harris. So those of you thinking she's a progressive... which I know those of us who are progressive know she's not a progressive, but those of you who are not progressives who thought maybe she was a progressive, she's not a progressive, and you remember that. Also, former Vice President Joe Biden, which Joe Biden comes from Delaware. Every corporation in America is formed in Delaware. It's literally the corporation state. He's literally a corporate Democrat, quite literally. And former Rep Beto O'Rourke. That's right. This one is surprising because a lot of people think that Beto O'Rourke is a progressive because he ran a grassroots campaign on small donors and he's very charismatic and he's young and he seems very progressive. And I bought into that too. I thought Beto for president. I loved the guy. Until I discovered the truth. And that's how it always goes, right? It's when you dig deeper and you realize, oh man, you mean you're not on my team? What? Shit, you were going to be a good one too. And Beto would have been. He would have been great. But you know what? The guy is rich as shit. And he's wealthier than Ted Cruz. This is what people don't even know about Beto. He has more money than Ted Cruz. Everybody made Ted Cruz seem like he was the rich guy that they needed to unseat. And actually, Beto has like double the money of Ted Cruz. And Beto's wife is the single child to an actual billionaire. She's like going to inherit everything. And Beto's going to obviously be the recipient of that, a benefactor of that. So Beto is rich. And because of that, I do appreciate that Beto at least isn't bought. He's running on small donors and his own self. And I can actually respect that a lot. I just don't agree with his ideas because his ideas are rooted in wealth. He's a wealthy guy. He's trying to protect his own interests, and that's how that goes. So I just don't agree with his actual personal thoughts. They go on to say one executive who Politico described as a hedge fund manager and top Democratic donor declared, if it's Biden and Beto or Biden and Harris, that might make a difference. The good news for Biden is everyone likes him. The bad news is there's not a lot of passion. So I think this kind of gives us the blueprint, and we really need to get the word out here on who we really should and should not support. I would think that anyone who is backed by Wall Street should be an automatic disqualifier. Anyone who Wall Street likes, you have to ask those questions. Why does Wall Street like them? And, to some degree, I mean, we're going to have, obviously, right now we need a serious course correction. We've got an overabundance of control by Wall Street in our political matters. And so we need an absolute correction. And that means we need to swing to the opposite side and just get Wall Street out of government completely. Eventually, when we succeed, and years have gone by, maybe even decades, we need to kind of consider that, of course, companies bring benefit, health to the economy. And so they can't just go completely unrepresented. The problem is they're just so right now completely overrepresented that we need to completely eliminate them for a little while, or at least really severely debilitate them and their influence on politics. I mean, we can't even have honest discussions about policies, which is what I'm going to talk about next, what happened with Kamala Harris after her CNN town hall where she said she was for Medicare for all. We can't even have honest, genuine discussions about what we genuinely believe, and we can't even push those policies because Wall Street owns Washington. So there's your blueprint. Vote for, at this point, Elizabeth Warren or Tulsi Gabbard or Pete Buttigieg. I want to do a video on Pete Buttigieg because he's a really interesting candidate, and I want to learn a little bit more about him. But I actually think the guy's a legit progressive. So we've got a few that are in the race, and more hopefully on the way, potentially Sanders. I know he's considering announcing that he's going to be running for president, and there might be some more. So we just want to make sure that we get the word out on who is backed by Wall Street and who isn't, because it's really, truly going to matter. Okay, coming up next, let's talk about Elizabeth. Not Elizabeth. I love Elizabeth, and I actually do want to talk about Elizabeth. I want to talk about the difference at some point between her interview on Rachel Maddow versus Kamala Harris's interview on Rachel Maddow. I've got all of these videos that I want to do that I've kind of got racked up in my brain, and then hopefully I'll eventually get to them at some point. But coming up, let's talk about Kamala Harris and what the heck happened. Why all of a sudden is she saying, well, okay, we'll consider it more moderate approaches than Medicare for all.